Hi there, you're watching Time Warner Cable's local edition, the Sacramento Report. I'm Jaime Garza, and today I am joined by Assemblymember Luis Alejo and civil rights leader Dolores Huerta. And we're talking, of course, today about farm workers and farm workers' rights. And for decades, there's been a major push to try to bring some kind of protection to the men and women who work our fields here in California. And right now, there are one or two bills that are aiming to help them even more. Set it up for us.
Yeah, well, one of the historic landmark pieces of legislation here in Sacramento that will be debated here is Senate Bill 104, the Fairness for Farm Workers Act. And we're hoping that this bill would make it easier for farm workers to become part of a union so they have greater protections in terms of job security, health benefits, a better future for their children as well.
You say union, and really this is a time where we're seeing a lot of big corporations union busting. I mean, all over Los Angeles, we see that with the big corporations. How do you provide this kind of protection, Dolores, to these people who many times don't have a voice?
Well, under the National Labor Relations Law for all unions except farm worker unions, workers can actually join a union just by signing a card. And this is what this bill does. And this is really important because when we think about this, if your signature is good enough to buy a house, open a bank account, get a passport, get your driver's license, get married, get a divorce, right? It sure ought to be good enough to join your union, right? And this is what this bill does. And that's very important because sometimes when farm workers are trying to organize, they really don't have the power that the employers have, and so they get threatened and they get intimidated, and they're out there in the field in the employer's property. So what this bill would do is say in the safety of their home, they could sign a bill to authorize the union to represent them, make it very simple. And this has been part of the national law for many, many years. Farm workers, of course, were excluded from the national law way back in the 30s when the national law was passed. So it would kind of equalize everything and make it possible for farm workers to be able to get their unions the way that they need to get them.
It seems so easy, but Assemblymember Alejo, you and I were speaking. A young lady, Maria Isabel Vasquez Jimenez, died in the fields. A 17-year-old pregnant woman died in the fields because she wasn't protected out there. And her employers, who were facing criminal charges, got a slap on the wrist and said, do some community service. But you were telling me that somebody talked to the governor at that time and was begging for some help. Tell me about that and what happened because he spoke out.
Well, the governor at that time, Arnold Schwarzenegger, attended her funeral. It was very highly publicized, this tragedy that happened to this young farm worker woman. And when her uncle approached the governor asking for greater protections for farm workers, he lost his job just a few days later in retaliation for asking for protections not only for workers in the Stockton area but throughout the state of California.
And for someone who's been working for decades for these rights, that's got to be tragic for you.
Well, but not surprising. I mean, Governor Schwarzenegger could have signed this bill. It passed the legislature several times, and he refused to do so. You know, kind of goes apart with the course. But first of all, I want to thank the people of Los Angeles because they were able to give us some really good progressive Democrats elected to the state of California. I want to thank you very much for that. We have high expectations that this bill hopefully will pass the legislature again. I just want to say one more thing, too. We know a lot of the farm workers are undocumented, but we have to remind people that every single immigrant group that came to this country, whether of their own will or brought here against their will, they were given legalization status at some point or the other to become residents and citizens of this country. So we're asking for legalization for our undocumented, be it the people at work or students. And when we're asking that, well, we're asking for something that has always been in the United States of America. It's nothing different from anything that we've ever done. And so we're hoping also that this will happen. We'll get immigration reform at the national level at some point, and that we're also working to get our dream students the right to get some type of financial aid while they go to college.
The battle continues. Dolores Huerta, Assemblymember Luis Alejo, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you at home for watching Time Warner Cable's local edition, the Sacramento Report. And don't forget, you can always watch this interview as well as all of the others here on My Government On Demand. You'll find that on Channel 1.